Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Pixologic at Comic-Con. So, I'm your host, Joseph Drust, again. So we're coming down to the final demo of Comic-Con today, so I'm the last one here. So I'm going to show you some things that I've been just demoing while I'm here, and then me and little Funko Joseph, we're gonna do some things. So we're gonna model some stuff. I'm trying to pull up the chat now to see if you guys have any questions. You can answer them. I'm probably just gonna flow along, show you guys what I did at Comic-Con here on the machines here, and then go through and see if there's anything that's exciting, and I'll go through and maybe replicate one of those and go through the processes that I use to do it. So a little bit of learning, a little bit of just relaxing Bob Ross sculpting type stuff. So we'll see how it goes. I'm working on pulling up the chat here quick so that you guys can hit me up with stuff. So bear with me 1 minute here, and then we'll get going. So I'm going to go through some of the stuff I've been demoing on. So basically, I've been having some fun just doing some mindless sculpts here, just showing ZBrush in action. So here we have one here, which is started off as some sort of crazy alien, then it's got some fish and all sorts of other things. Oh look, Terry's helping me out. Okay.
Yeah, that's quick.
Excellent. Look at that. Look at that, Terry. All right. So I got my things here. If you guys have any questions about anything I'm doing, just hit me up. Happy to answer it in here. So here we got example one. So I was doing like freestyle stuff. So this is one quick one. A lot of Sculptris Pro for the bodies, and then I'd go in and actually start coming in and doing some Z-modeler stuff for the rest of the parts here. So I had little quick things like that. Another one I did was this one here. Look at that turtle with that wonky eye. Let's zoom out. Zoom out here. There's another just real quick one, trying to like quickly come in and create a scene. So these were just all quick models, Sculptris Pro stuff, just working on shapes and forms. These I ended up running through a lot of filters afterwards to kind of get different effects with the NPR system. These waves here were just sculpted out, and then I used spiral brush to kind of get them the effects. And then, of course, with the blue background, the scene looks a little bit better than the gray one here. So I started with some turtle, and then it ended up with the turtle being crushed by a car, but then I didn't want to model the car, so then it turned into the turtle coming off a cliff trying to go swimming. So we went that route with that. Another one here, we did a little family of random creatures. So I went with a lot of blue and purplish hues. So we had a little creature, Sculptris Pro, and then you got some little babies, and then we got these like little tiny, let me see if I can zoom in here to Mr. Butterfly things here. So some sort of little crazy winged creatures came into play too. So a lot of Sculptris Pro with these guys as well, just messing with the features to create a scene. And about all these took roughly an hour and a half. So there was a lot of just quick sculpting, just looking at shapes, figuring out what I'm looking at, and going from there. Then we did some Plunge Bob, so some little things here. So it's just Z-modeler for the body, very simple shapes, and then just poly painting, another really quick one. I then broke into, I should have named these, did something that was kind of like Protos type stuff on here. So sculpted with Sculptris Pro to get like the base forms, added some VDM stuff for the different assets, and then went in and used the Z-modeler brush to add some armor pieces. Then I did this cool trick, which is probably what I'm going to demo here, using surface noise and stuff to get a lot more details on hard surface objects. So it's just a quick way to do it. And this again was like another just hour and a half just to get this stage. So just quickly blocking out things. My brain works on like seeing shapes, so I'll pull something out and then I'll see something in that shape, and then I'll go in and detail and move that on. And then we did some little minions too, so things like that. And then I got one more here somewhere. I got two more. Did a little alien robot, and this guy he was going to storm Area 51 because why not, right? So that was another one little demo guy there. So Sculptris Pro for the shape, Sculptris Pro for the alien, and pulled these out, and then started using Boolean brushes to kind of get those different shapes and forms on it. So a lot of fun, and this is one of the powers of ZBrush here, is just in terms of creativity. So here's a final example of just a quick mech here. And there's a few processes you can do to kind of speed up your workflows and then add like a bunch of crazy detail without spending too much time. So these are some different things here. And if I look at these parts, you can see this is what they kind of end up looking like. So I'm going to go through the process for sure on how to do this, just so you guys can see it. So I'm going to go start demoing that. So we're just going to make some robots, do a little free stuff, show you my ZModeler process, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to reset my scene here. And I'm going to start off with just a simple Q cube. We'll do a robot bust. So we won't do a full, say, robot arms and legs, but we can get through a bust pretty quick. I'll move my chat here. If you guys have questions on any of this, just hit me up. If you can't hear me, if I start mumbling, if I start singing, just let me know.
Yeah, there's one on chat that says, did your son and daughter giggle at the Funko Dogs?
Yeah, they loved it. They thought it was great. So Doug, yeah, so we're still working on those. They're still in development. So once again, we have a high quality of standards for the software we kind of put out, and we want to make sure that it's ready for you guys to use. So it's definitely still in development. But that's pretty much all I can say about it. So, all right, so we got subtool surface. All right, so I'm gonna start modeling, then you hit me up again here in a minute, Neil, and I'll show you a cool little thing. Actually, I can show it to you now. So there isn't really a way to snap to a surface, but one thing you can snap to is the floor or the scene in the world, right? So there is a macro that's in 2019, and it's called snap to ground. And so what you can do with this is, I use it for 3D printing for snapping stuff. So let's say I want to have like my build volume and I want to figure out where all my parts go first. I can use this, and you'll notice that when you're looking at ZBrush here and if I have the floor on, the floor looks like it's on the base of the model, but then you also have this thing in the middle, right? So this middle thing here is the center of your world, so this secondary axis. So this other one is going to follow wherever the base of your model is. And this is controlled in the draw menu here. So there's this elevation right here. And so the elevation, when it's set to -1, it's going to attach to the bottom of your model. So if I take this cube here and I drag it down and then update my scene, you're going to see that that floor grid is going to snap to it. So the true center is right here, and then this is the floor grid, and since it's set to that draw size of -1, it's going to snap when I move the model. So if I move it up and rotate again, you're going to see that floor grid is going to go right to it. And this process allows you to have a creature that may be bigger or larger or off the center of the world, and you're still going to have that ground plane, and then if you render with BPR, you can get shadows. So it's kind of nice to have. If you don't want it to do that, you can just go to the draw menu here and you can change this to 0 instead of -1, and now it's going to be at the center of the world. So you can also set up your project's to-do list and so that it's always going to be center of the world. And now with this being center of the world, what I can do now is I can run this macro, and it's going to take it and it's going to snap it to the center of the ground. So I can click this and it's going right to the ground. So if I want to say align stuff to that surface, I can go by doing that, and then, but there's no real way, Neil, to take one surface and align to another. There's some tricks you can do with the Boolean, so especially if you're cutting up stuff, you can do a one side subtractive, one side additive, and then go back and forth and kind of get it to line up. But there's no true like snapping methodology right now. So for this, I'm just going to start with the ZModeler brush, and I'm just going to start modeling like a quick chess piece. If you guys aren't familiar with the ZModeler brush, it's a quick way to use poly modeling inside ZBrush. So I'm just going to add and subtract forms. It's worked on context sensitive, so you have edges, polys, and then also points. And if you hover over any of these and press spacebar, you're going to get a list of different functions you can do. So I use it quite a bit just for blocking out, and especially for just making like quick robots and stuff. So I'll just make a bunch of parts and then go back in and change them up and do different things. Another thing I do with this a lot is if you hold down Control and Shift, instead of having the select rectangle brush, I'll come through and I'll grab the slice rectangle. And the slice rectangle is awesome with the ZModeler brush, because what it's going to allow me to do is if I come through and slice with this here, I'm going to get that new polygroup, right? And so this is going to come through, it's going to give me triangles where those meet, and it's going to give me a new polygroup in the center. And now I can quickly come through and take this and then use QMesh to get little details like that. So this is a very fast way to kind of get these little intricate things. And so you can hit anything with this, and it's going to give you those things, and then now I can come in with the ZModeler brush, scale it up and down, and now I'm going to get that detail. Now, one thing when I'm using this, what I'll do for the process like that one robot is I'm going for just quick concept. So I'm not trying to match any like kind of designs or styles. So I just want to play with the forms. So with the ZModeler brush, I can pull one out and then pull another one, and I get tapers like this. And then if I want to add stuff over here, I can pull these out and say do something like that. And see, now I'm starting getting these little complex parts. So I'll come through and just kind of grab surfaces and just kind of experiment with the shapes and with the forms. And so I can pull things in and start building these little assets or parts to make up this mech. Another thing I use all the time is just detaching surfaces. So I'll clear my polygroups often because Paul will keep all his. He ends up using his for his entire stuff. I don't care at this point, so I actually will destroy them. I like seeing where I'm selecting rather than having a multitude of polygroups. So every time when you'll see I'm modeling here, if I hit Control W, I'm going to clear those out real quick. So I'll just clear them out so I can see just where I'm at, and then I come in and add, some more stuff and keep deforming. Another thing I do a lot is breaking of the QMesh action. So if you drag it out, if you hold Shift, it's going to give you a distortion, so it's going to pull a move. And this will allow you to get some tapers and bends on your surfaces, which is nice. But then if you pull it out and hold Control, it's going to split it off. Right? So with this split off, I can then add another part, and now I have that detached geometry on that secondary area. So now I can come through, start dragging this out. This is a cool little area here, so I can highlight both of these. And then if I pull this down, I'm going to get this nice kind of angled shape, like that. I can add some more lines over here. May want to just pull in this entire section, so I'm just going to grab all these. And to quickly select this stuff, I'm just holding down Alt and then scrubbing the polygons, and that's going to give me those things there. And then I'm just going to start just pulling up some forms here, see some kind of different things that I want to kind of mess with. Let's see what I can get out of this. So you can kind of see I'm kind of getting like some little shoulder parts maybe on this mech, and then I got like this face thing in the middle. Control W again to clear my polygroups. I'll use Move. You want to make sure when you're in Move, if you have symmetry on, that you hit the little home button here, and that's going to select that other part. And at this stage, I'll rotate stuff around, kind of fiddling with the shapes and the forms of this. So maybe something like that. And then I'll go and grab, say, this. So I need some more bulk on the sides here. So I'm going to actually split these off. I'm going to hide those and then do a split hidden. So now I have these two different subtools here. So now I can go back to this, and then I can activate solo to kind of see this really clear. So you can see right now I'm not too concerned about how these edge loops are cutting in. So you see as I cut this in, it's kind of distorting down here, but I don't really care about that. Right now I'm just looking at the shape. It's not affecting my silhouette at all with those lines being in there, so I can just ignore them. If I want to be proportional when I'm holding this, I can hold down Shift, and this will lock in a proportional direction. So you can see it's actually going to now give me a straight line rather than a crazy line. So this will help too, just establishing things. I want to pull this out some and add some more like definition here. So I'm going to QMesh this, spread this out, and maybe do something like that. And then I can bump these out there, and then maybe pull that as well. If you have any times when you come across, you're getting stuff like this. So the QMesh action is going to look at the surfaces that are coming where you pulled. So as I pull this out, it's going to lock that, but it doesn't know what to do with this face because there's nothing over here to control it. So if I pull from this way, it's going to have this face for guidance and this face for guidance, and then it's going to give me the result I want. So if sometimes you get some wonky stuff, you can go through and end up just trying another direction, and you'll get what you're looking for. Another thing I like doing with the ZModeler brush is just adding like little finite details. So I'll come through and just pull out little things like this. So some little just little variations onto the surface. And I'll do that a lot while I'm working here. Just maybe add some like little lines here. It just adds a little more kind of intricacy. So I can add something like that, get that kind of growing out. For the mecha, the head of this guy here, I'm going to start closing up these. So I'm just pulling these together, fill that in, and then maybe add some of this. I'll actually just kind of break this off as a one new part. So once again, using that control option with QMesh to get that face there, and then I can scroll this up and clean this up to get my block shape here. Maybe add something here. Maybe pull these out. So now I get some sort of like head shape. Add some more stuff. Come up. Add another cut here, add this, and shrink these back down. And another cut shape here. And this is why I clear my polygroups all the time, because I just want a little bit different area to kind of come in and connect. Add some more stuff here. Hold that Shift key to get it straight if I want it straight. And I can extrude these out. Maybe add something like that. Pull these up here. So this one I don't like where that cut is, so once again I'm going to clear my polygroups. I want to make sure I have a nice kind of angle, so this angle I don't really want to fix. I could go in and add a line here, but oftentimes I'll just, especially for something quick like this, I'll just do these. I'm just pulling out shapes and silhouettes on this guy. So now I got some sort of like head kind of thing there. Once again, I can Control W, I can isolate this and split it. And now this stage I a few different parts here. So I got this area here, I've got these arm things, and then this. Move the head around because it's not really where I want it. So I reset my gizmo, kind of play with the form and see what's kind of working. So it's going to work by a lot of shape finding. So my brain just, it's how my brain functions. So I'll go through and just move things around. If I don't like it, I can often just rechange the position of the shape, and that's going to give me what I'm looking for. So this here is looking a little bit too crazy, so I'm going to just flip it around a few times and see what it's looking like. So that's looking a little bit better. There's also some different macros too that you can use to help scale stuff to the world. So down here at the bottom, you can zero your different axes. So I know that X is going to be left and right here. So if I have my shape kind of moved up like this, and go to macro, hit 0x, and it's kind of right back in the center. And every once in a while, I'll just come and hit these just to make sure that the stuff's all kind of lined up. So I got that kind of going on there. Now I'm going to go back to my center form here. Another thing I can do, just since I have all these parts, is I can clone them off and kind of rotate them around to get different effects. And I'm going to start just overlaying these things. So for this shape here, it may be a little bit just not enough detail in the front. So I can come over and grab this again and move it down. And I'll split these off up in two. So now I have a second one of those. And once again, do that. Zero out an X there. And I can move it up. So now I have more of this kind of like torso part here that are coming around these other ones. And then I'm going to go back to this one here and add a little more details. So once again, coming in, adding some edge loops. Split these up a little bit. Grab these. These are going to be those little like kind of angles. Make sure I'm in symmetry too when I do this. I'm going to clear my poly groups. Add these guys. I'm going to go back here. If you ever mess up your symmetry, you can always just go down to Mirror and Weld, Geometry tab 2. Now, one thing that's been added in Mirror and Weld, it's going to look at the side that doesn't have geometry, and it's going to make sure that you always get a Mirror and Weld. So you're never going to get an issue now where it says no polygons exist, can't perform the mirror. So I can never remember which side Mirror and Welds correctly, so I'll go through and just try the angles until they work. But now with the Smart Mirror and Weld feature, it's a lot better. Got a little detail there, maybe not what I'm looking for. Screw this, screw that. So that's a little more interesting. Add some more stuff here. Pull this out. So I'm just trying to get a little more kind of stuff on the side here. Now this area you can see is a little bit messy in terms of polygons, but a little trick here. I'm just looking for trying to pop the silhouettes and shapes. So pulling things up. And this is more of like I don't know, I find it a good collaboration for freeform stuff. So for sculpting and retopology, so I did games for years, and I would always retop it after I sculpted. It was just kind of the thing that I always did. I found that I didn't want, well, it depended, I guess. So let me go back. So if we had a model that we had to do, and it required a, say, morph target, right? So if you're looking at like civilians and like, you know, definitely human characters, morph targets come into play. And these targets, what they do is that it allows you to morph, you know, different characters from a single shape. So if you have a civilian and then you want to make 500 civilians, you can just sculpt heads with the same geometry, and then those morph targets can be replicated. So you can load the geometry once and then deform the geometry, and then that's going to give you that new face. So that would be the time when I'd actually go through and that would be the time I'd actually go through and use, say, topology, do the low res first, and then go in and start generating the high res sculpts. Because you have to be conformed to that high res sculpting area. So that topology cannot change. So you must make sure that your subdivision 1 matches the model. You can then sculpt any details on afterwards, but you're going to have to keep that as step 1. Now, when I do stuff like this, I'm just going to go and just do it first. Especially any kind of other sculpting, like say figurative or say even sculpting for toys and stuff, I'll always go through and just do it to get what I need. So I'm not really concerned about the topology, especially if it's going for 3D printing. As long as it's watertight, that topology could be a mess. So it just depends what kind of format you're going into for the topology there. So that's another thing here with this little detail that I like doing, something like that, with that form. And we're going to hit up this one as well. So right now I'm just going to establish interesting silhouettes, and I'm going to be almost done here with that. So just doing a few more of these. something like that, to get a little bit more of a kind of mech structure here. And I'm looking at just the sides and the angles and seeing what's going. Now this is just the base build, so I'm also going to come in after this and I'm going to start using insert meshes. They're a really easy way to get a lot of details on stuff. And then I'm going to show you a little trick with the surface noise stuff here. Something that's probably like, I don't know if anyone really knows it. This is probably going to be the first time I'm going to demo it. So you guys may be like, oh, what is that? So it's pretty cool. So let me hit that up here in a minute. So it's one of those things that we got a lot of hidden use stuff inside of ZBrush. So if you used us for a while, you'll know that sometimes we hold Control and Shift and do a process. It's going to do some crazy stuff. There's always things like that. We got children's going crazy over here. My children are actually pretty good. They helped with the booth today. It worked pretty well. All right, so I want one more piece of this, so I can't just end up with the shoulders. I want to add one more part here. So I'm going to be cheap here, and I'm just going to duplicate this and give me a second head. And then move that down, and then scale it up a little, reorient it, so I get something I like here. It's just playing with the shapes. So there we go. I think I can live with that as a silhouette there. And I'm going to just make sure they're all centered. Let's go through and do this quick. So there we go. Now after I do my block out, one thing I'll do now is I have a lot of surfaces. And a lot of these surfaces right now, they're just all geo, right? So they're very rough, they're hard edged. I want to soften them up a little bit. And so to do this, I'm going to go to the dynamic subdivision area here. I'm going to turn on dynamic. And you can see when I turn it on initially, it's going to give everything smooth. And this is not what you want, right? I mean, maybe you want it, but I lost all those little kind of harsh details I had. So I'm going to turn on QGrid. And what QGrid is going to do, it's going to look at the edges, and it's going to start generating edge bumping on it. So if you've ever poly modeled, you'll know that if you have a subdivision surface, if two edges are set together, it's going to give you a harsher edge. And then if you start pulling those edges apart, the edge is going to smooth. So what this process is doing, it's going to go through and automatically generate those edges to give you a soft or hard edge. And you control the coverage on this, so you can shrink it up and down. And this is just going to soften those shapes a little bit. So now I'm not getting as harsh of geometry there. And I can apply these to all, so I'm coming here and just apply this and then change the coverage and just control it. And so it ends up just being a little softer. I don't want it as hard as it normally is. Soften these out. And guess what? I haven't hit the French keyboard button all night. It's been amazing. Claire from Funko, she had the Windows button issue, so I told her it wasn't as bad as the French keyboard incident that I did on Wednesday. All right, so now I got this softened. Now, another thing with this is, let's say you have this and now you want to, the QGrid. We're gonna go back to QGrid quick. QGrid quick. So QGrid is gonna take every edge and it's gonna add this edge bumping to it. Every edge, right? So if you have something cylindrical, I'm just gonna go ahead and append this. I'm gonna add these guys here anyway. So I'm just gonna add a dummy object and then Q-cube this, and then just move this in the middle of the mesh so he's just kind of hidden in the surface there. And now with this, I'm going to add some IMM parts. So I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to go to the model kit here. This is all going to feed into QGrid here in a second. Wait for it. Wait for it. So the IMM brush has tons of parts. These are all kind of based on all sorts of craziness. So I'm going to start adding some of these. And this is what I'm using to adding round forms to the model. So right now, all my forms are blocky, right? So I'm going to block it out. These are all the blocked forms, right? Squared, hard edge, every that. Now I'm going to use the circular ones from the IMM model kit. So I'm bringing back in the round objects on my surface. So I can add these in and I can see these on the model. Now where I'm adding these is on the subtool I currently have selected. So this is the dummy subtool I just brought in and turned into a Q-cube. Another macro that's handy is if you go into the macro area here, there is an append Q-cube subtool. So instead of doing the process where I appended a mesh in, then change it to a Q-cube, you can go to macro, hit that button, and it's just going to go ahead and do it. So a little thing there, you can also modify the properties of that. All macros are text files, so if you have one, you can come in and add it, and then edit it up and change how you want that to do. So you can see here I've added these. So here I have my cube, and then I have these cylinders here. Now these guys in this brush were all made to work with dynamic subdivision. So I'm going to turn that on. You'll see this is the result I'm getting. So anything that doesn't have a crease is going to get rounded, and everything with the crease is going to retain a hard edge. Now if I turn on Q-Cube, you'll see this is what I'm going to get, right? And this is because this Q-Cube option is going to look at all the edges on your model. So it's going to look at everything. So if you have something round and you turn this mode on, this is what you're going to get. So you're not going to get a round shape. So as I'm building, what I do is I break up my building parts of my model into different subtools. So I have a subtool that's using Q-Cube, Q-Grid, and then I have one that's just using dynamic. So round stuff goes in the dynamic subtool. Anything that I want hard edge goes in the Q-Grid subtool. So that's why now with all these parts, I'm going to come through and start applying different insert mesh brushes here, and these are all going to be my round forms. So everything I'm going to apply here is going to be round. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to use this insert mesh brush and just start adding these guys in. After these are added, I'm going to go in and just kind of distort them, so I can rotate them around, change their forms. And I'm just trying to establish silhouette parts on here. So just nothing too crazy, just moving things around. If you find that the Gizmo 3D is getting in your way, you can change the size of it too, so it doesn't always have to be this big. And I'll just play with this. I want some kind of parts on that there. And I try when I do this too to not overuse a bunch of parts, to only use like 4 or 5. If you start using too many, it just gets chaos, and then you'll end up having like something that just looks like it's all over the place. So I'll go through and try to limit how many of these tools I use. And then for consistency's sake as well, when I'm doing this, what I'm going to do is if I have a part and I want to repeat it, I'm going to try to keep that size the same too. So drawing this out, if you hold shift, it's going to lock into your draw size. So as I drew this out, I held shift and it'll lock that in. And if I change my draw size to something smaller and do that same thing, now it's going to give me control. I'm losing my hotkeys here. Drag it out, hold control, and it's going to use draw size. So I can find out what size works best for this part. I can remember this in my brain if I want, so I can use it later. But now I can come in and I can start using this on my model, and it's going to give me those same parts. So adding these different things here. So I'm just kind of coming through and trying to see what areas would make some cool silhouettes. So that's pretty cool there. Kind of want some vertical ones though, so I'm going to turn off symmetry here and drag this out and hold control. Add one of those. So some sort of attachment part there. Maybe you need some on the chest. You always need some around here, always. Just how it goes. And these are going to be a little bigger perhaps for there, so I'm going to just modify them. And then at this stage, all this mesh too is watertight. So I have no holes on this model, so as long as these parts, when I draw them out, are going to intersect in that geometry, I can merge this all down and make it a 3D printed mesh. So now I'm going to grab another one here. I'm just going to go through this. And I'm just going to detail this out pretty quick because we're getting to the end of Comic-Con here, and I want to get to this one effect to show you guys. So these little holes I filled out, I'm going to go ahead and fill some stuff in there. It's just adding details to those areas, some things that will catch your eye. Same with things like this. And then I'll do small ones. And these I'll use my draw size to kind of get, and I'll just interlay a lot of these all at the same size. This is going to be like those little rivets, and these I want consistent. So no matter where they go, I want to make sure that they're the same size to get that kind of weld effect. I'm just going to go ahead and do these real quick. So it's just dragging them out and holding control. Trying to get these different objects here. And I often do like things like this. I'll go from the side and add these little parts. So just going to add that kind of mechanical feel to it. And these all, the depth settings for these should all be standardized to come through and allow you to kind of just add them all over the place. Then you get in the Bob Ross mode where you're just very quiet. You're just putting some insert meshes in. And if you clear your mask, now I'm starting to get more of this mechanical thing here. I'm going to add one more thing, and then we're going to go to the little trickery. So suspension one, this one I use a lot, just to kind of get things that look like they're attached. So basically run some wires. If you think of like, there's an old role-playing game called Rifts, and the cover of it had this like cyborg mech from Terminator. And I always admired his neck stuff. So he always had like all these little wires coming out of his neck. Let me see if I can actually get symmetry turned on so I can draw this out. There we go. So I'll take these and I'll run these around the neck area here. And I'm just kind of moving them around, scaling them up and down, rotating. And this is just adding a bunch of just extra detail to this part here. And I just want to intersect all this. So I'm rotating, intersecting, moving this until it gets to kind of something where it's giving me a silhouette. It's not looking too blatantly ugly. Just kind of filling that in, so we got something like that. And then I can duplicate this, holding Control. I want to add at least probably 2 to 3 of these, because it's going to add multiple connection points from the model and the part itself. And I usually hide some of it in the mesh itself, so it doesn't look too... I don't want it really like... I want enough to make a mask, to make a neck, but I don't want it to go too crazy, so just something like that. So I get those there. And I'll do the same with the arms too, so if I want some connectors there, I'll do the same thing, add these little parts, drag them out until they make a connection, and then I'll come through and just control drag, make a few of them. After I do the rotations on these, I'll come and like rotate them some, so it looks like they have multiple points of connectivity. If you think of like the suspension on a car, these don't need to be precise, it's just kind of giving something to read onto. You know, I'll add probably about 3 of those too. So there we go, we got some connection points there. So that looks pretty good for our mech thing here. Now at this point, what I want to do is hit one more kind of detailing pass on it, and that's using the Boolean brush. So using the Boolean system. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to append in another dummy subtool. Actually, I'm going to use the macro this time, make it easy. So I'm going to append a cube cube. This is ZBrush. It is not free.
I'm sure everything.
So with this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through and set this to subtractive. And now I'm going to grab the IMM Boolean brush. So I have a cube now, and the cube's subtracting, right? So now I go in here, I can grab this Boolean brush, grab this, and then now I'm going to come up here and I have my different parts. And if you guys ever not used this, it's one of my other favorite things. So I just have a subtool set as subtractive, got live Boolean tool turned on. Since it's at the bottom of my hierarchy over here, whenever I use this, it's going to subtract from everything above it. So I can grab this little oval part here, and when I drag it on the surface, I'm going to get this, right? So I can come now in and add this extra level of detail on things. So let's say I want to add, you know, something here that looks like it's cut in, maybe something here as well. So I can just go through and add this other detail here, and this is going to add just a little more to my shape. Just coming in and clicking and dragging. This is one of the kind of my go-tos for this kind of stuff too. I'll come in and start dragging this out. If I want it the same size, I can do the same size too, but we're just meching it out. So I'll add this, a few parts. Once again, I don't try to go overboard with it, because I only want to use like a few of these, just so it doesn't get chaos. And then you have like just stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff. We're already at the stuff on top of stuff stage, and I don't really want to go more than necessary. This is another one, the panel latch, I really like a lot. This is going to add this little kind of connectivity thing here. And depending on the size you draw it out at, you can get some really convincing things. And all this is in a non-destructive mode too. So at any time, if I find out I don't like one of these parts, I can go and remove it. It's not hurting my geometry, it's not adding to it. So it's very free form. Go ahead, try it out. If it looks like garbage, undo, redo. So pretty easy kind of sculpting stuff here. And you can also get some happy accidents. Like that's giving me a pretty cool line there. Another one I go to is this line circle, because it gives these really cool kind of circle patterns like this. And so I can drag this out anywhere, and it's going to give me that little extra detail. Especially if I have little designs like that, I may want to feed off a line there. Let's get that going. I want to do something here. And see, now I'm getting that happy accident too, so now I'm adding that other element on top of it. Add some more connecting points. Just, it's almost like Boolean surface sculpting is what it's like. So now you can see, now I'm starting to get some form out of this. And all this is doing is just adding instant mesh parts. So if I turn off live Boolean solo, you see I'm just drawing out IMM parts. But since this tool is in subtractive, it's cutting into the forms. And then we'll add a little of this. This is another one I go to. A little spiral design. But actually, I'm going to probably stop here in terms of those. I would sometimes get carried away. This is another one that will give you a nice kind of like greebly pattern. So you can add these in to get little designs. These ones are fun to stack, these indents. So if you have like a surface, like say like here, and you want to make kind of like a lattice pattern, well, I still do it here. I can add one of these. Actually, I need a bigger surface. Add one of these here. I can draw the other one out negatively. I can actually start building little patterns here. Since these are insert meshes, if you hold spacebar, you can move them around too. So it's going to look at the axis, and then you can move them around with spacebar. So you can kind of fiddle where they go, change the diameters of them, move them around. And these ones will give you that kind of, you can keep stacking them up and get a nice pattern out of it. So I think these were okay here, but those other ones are crazy. So I'll get rid of those. So there we go. So that's that pass for this here. And now the final pass I want to do on these, I want to use, actually I'm going to do a little more of these here. I want some of this design over here, kind of make it a little bit airy. And since this is hidden, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to turn off everything but those wings, so these ones up top here. And I can still use the Booleans in this format, so now I just have more clarity of where they go, so I can drag this out. I'm still on that same subtool, so I can drag this out, move it with spacebar. If I use control, I can come through and actually get it to hold as well. I just wanted a little more, some little design in here. So maybe something like that. So now when you look from that side, it's not as boring. Spacebar. So now we have little parts there, and I can turn all these back on. So there we go. So now we got this. Now at this stage, I'm probably going to start coloring stuff too to break some of it up. It's very monotonous right now. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Mecca, honey ho. There we go. That'd be a good save name. All right, so now I got this, and now what I want to do is I have these details in here, but maybe want to go overboard on Greeble. Like I want to Greeble the heck out of this. So I'm going to select one of these parts, and what I'm going to do is I want to duplicate these. And so I have a backup of what I have, because right now this is just dynamic subdivision one. So I'm going to duplicate it, and then with the duplicated version, when I just solo that guy there, I'm going to come down here, I'm going to apply my dynamics to make sure it's solid, delete my lowers. I'm going to go to dynamesh here, and I'm going to dynamesh this part. So I've taken one of these, the duplicate version, and gone and dynameshed it. Now, when you dynamesh this, you want to make sure that at least most of the clarity stays, so 512 is a little bit too low for this part. The dynamesh resolution is going to be based on your scale of your model, and a scale a resolution of 2048 and XYZ size of 2 is going to be your max dynamesh resolution. So there's going to be little factors in there. So that's pretty good for that part. And I want to do the same for the other guys. So I'm going to take this one. How much time I got, Terry?
20 minutes, but there's a question from you too. Yeah.
So you can do sculpting for hard surface too. The thing with sculpting for hard surfaces is that you may have to do a lot more cleanup. So oftentimes the workflow for that is that if I use Dynamesh to find my forms, I go ahead and find them, and then I'd retopologize stuff. Go in there, retopologize areas, and then use those as my breakout for the hard stuff. You can definitely get hard surface stuff out of just sculptural stuff, but it's going to be a lot of H-polish. So you're going to be using the H-polish brush a lot. It can definitely be done, but for stuff like this, it's a little bit too slow for my experimentational purposes on this. If I'm doing something I have to match, say like a transformer, by all means, I probably sculpt different parts, H-polish parts of those, and do other things. It just depends on the day of what I usually choose to mess with. So I'm gonna go grab this head and duplicate this one too, and then dynamesh this. So that 512? I forgot what I did on the other one. We'll check this. A little bit too low, 1024. I always turn blur off too. I just want a little bit crisper, so I always pop that off. Once these are dynameshed, I can rename them. We'll just do this. So that's not even the head, but we're going with it. And then we'll do the arms. You can write macros for all this stuff too, so this process should come through and I can actually macro this and then apply it. There's a few plugins you can download from the download center. One is called ZBrush, and it will allow you to create macros on the fly, and then you can dynamesh from there. Now you'll notice on this one I messed up. Too much talking. So before I did the dynamesh for this process, what you want to make sure you do is apply those dynamic subdivisions, because I lost all that nice soft creasing. So I'm going to come over here and I want to make sure I apply that, then dynamesh. And now that's going to give me what I want. And so there we go. So that's good. So that's the arms. We're going to turn off the old one. the head. So I need to duplicate this, turn off the old one, apply that, dynamesh to 1024. Boom, boom, boom. Got this part. That's what I just did. That's head number 2. This is where naming comes in. Don't be like me, kids. Name your stuff. Especially if you're working on a project with other people. Name it. Alright, so this one. That's good.
Where's the remote? Oh, there it is. Can you hand me that there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, awesome.
This one is the one that the other one I think I messed up. Yeah, so we're gonna undo this. Go back to that one, apply it, dynamesh it, and then that's it. So now I have all the versions of these. I have dynamesh versions of them, and they're just all gonna be visible right now. So now what I'm gonna do, so this thing's really heavy. You can start seeing it's gonna start moving around a little bit slow here because of just the massive amount of polygons it's just dynamesh these all through. But I wanna break these down and get a little more detail out of it. So more happy accident detail stuff. So I'm gonna choose this chest part here first. I'm gonna solo this is what I got here. And then I'm gonna go down to the surface noise. And I'm just gonna open this up. I'm gonna go in the noise maker here, and this is what I got. So I got the part, it's loaded in here. Now with this part loaded in, what I want to do is I want to add some more details. So you guys may have seen the tutorial I did on buildings where I was taking things like this and then applying surface noise on it. So it's going to be very similar to that, but there's one more added bonus to this. So this is the trick that maybe no one has, I don't know if we've ever demoed this, so this might be the first one here. So now I got to find my files. Where are they? Where are they? Let's see if I got them here. There we go. There we go. All right. So I got some different things here I'm going to grab. So I got some alphas. Unfortunately, I don't have my alpha plugin here installed for Windows, so you're not going to see icons of these. But basically, you'll have to see them when I come in. So I have some of these mech ones I'm going to grab. And you'll see them tiny right here. So they have like a bunch of gribbly parts. I just made them in 2.5D and dumped them out. So I dumped them out as an alpha. They've got grayscale values. So now that I have this applied, I'm going to turn down my basic noise all the way to the bottom. And then I adjust my alpha scale, and you can kind of see this happening, and I can adjust my strength, right? So this is gonna give me this kind of result. I don't really want the strength. What I wanna do is I want it to look at the topology of the model and cut it out. So I'm gonna change the offset here, and now I'm gonna start getting this happening, right? So it's flipping based on that structure. And this is gonna go through, and it's gonna clip it out. And now I can change this, and I can kind of get this crazy kind of gribbly effect happening on the surface. And if I adjust this alpha, kind of see if it's something that I want here.
The exhibit hall will be closing in 15 minutes.
15 minutes,
Please
people.
finalize all your purchases and begin heading to the front of the exhibit hall.
So that one looks pretty good right there, so we're gonna go with that. Now after I have this, what I'm gonna do is get out of here. And you can see now it's just gonna be displayed like this. So you can see this is open surfaces, right? So this is the noise that's being projected. It's cutting out the black, depending on where I have that offset value. But it's giving me these holy surfaces, right? So it's all the way through. So now what you could do is you could expand this out like the building tutorial, where I could take this, I can inflate it, and then that's gonna give me an offset, and then when you render, the one's gonna be outside the other. But I don't wanna do that. Say I wanna take this to 3D printing. Well, right now this is never gonna print, right? So it's still even in just surface noise normal mode, but once I hit apply, it's gonna lock it in. I can't print because it's not watertight. So if I go to the geometry tab here, and I wanna make sure my model's in that dynamesh mode, and I have that surface noise set with offsetting on it. If you come across the sub button right here and you hold down Alt and click, what it's going to do, it's going to look at this offset, and now it's going to dynamesh based on that alpha that you had just put on it. And you can see when this happens, it's going to go through and close everything up. So it's gone through and taken that alpha and closed the entire surface up. So now this is watertight. So I don't have that holy surface anymore. So that process again is you go to the surface noise area. You have your surface noise on. Make sure you have this offset slider set here. After that's set, we're gonna go to the dynamesh. We're gonna go to the sub button. Make sure dynamesh is active. You wanna hold down Alt and click, and now it's gonna give you this result. Now, one thing with this process is that when you do this, it's gonna ignore any other height values. So it's only looking at the offset. So if you wanna get those other sculptural details back on it, just go back down here, activate your noise again. We can kill the offset back to 0. And now I can come over here and adjust my strength here. Oh, where'd my mask go? Wait for it, wait for it. I may have to load it again. But basically you can come across and add your details back on. Now you notice this is still a little bit chunky here because it went through and projected it, but this is all a dynamesh, so if I turn my noise here. And now that it's a dynamesh, what I can do is run clay polish on it, right? And clay polish is going to come through and smooth a lot of this out. And so I can keep running this, and for this kind of stuff, it's going to end up cleaning that up quite a bit. So that's with 2 clay polishes on it. Now it's got rid of a lot of those hatch lines in there, and now I just have this geometry that looks really detailed. Now after I'm happy with that, and I turn my model back on, you're going to see it's going to be overlaid on itself, right? So just kind of empty there, an empty space. You may like this, you can keep it, but what I do is I'm going to go back to the original one that has those other details on it. I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to go to deformation, and now I'm going to inflate that just a little bit. So this is my original one I've selected now, that is the dynamic subtool, and I'm just going to inflate it a little bit, and as I inflate it, now I'm getting an inner structure to my mesh there, right? So you'll see here too that the booleans are still going to stay contained because they're on a different subtool, they're at the end result, but now I have this outer shell and this inner shell happening with my mesh there. So I'm getting all these kind of agreeable details in there, and this is all solid still, so it's all the way through. It sounds like it was Paul without a microphone. You're totally right. So I'm going to do another one of these, just show you guys this process again. Now after you do this, you probably want to color code some of these too. So if I have this part here, I'm going to fill this with, say, white. And then just so now you can see like the offset between those 2 metals. So it gives kind of that sheet metal effect. You can always go in and change this up. You can also reproject stuff multiple times. So you can project one way through the horizontal, use that dynamesh process, project forward, use that dynamesh process again, and then keep building on that subtracting stuff. It's going to give you a lot of detail. So for this one here, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. So once again, make sure I have the one that's dynameshed, right? Go down to the surface noise here, load up this. This one I want to find that angle I'm at, which I don't know where it is on the move. This part looks like, okay, there we go. So I'm going to kind of go to the front here, because what I want to do with this, instead of projecting from the side this time, I want to project the front. Go in there, grab another alpha. So I'm going to grab another mech one here. Turn the mix basic noise all the way down, scale this up, change my offset here. It's looking pretty decent. Adjust the scale. Maybe like that a little bit. Change it up. If you want to reset the position of your alpha 2, what you can do is as you're doing this, so I'm going to keep this where it is. Scale this up and down. So right now with this one too, I'm only getting half a project, right? So it's coming in the center, so it's giving me asymmetry. If I want it symmetrical, after I bring this in, go to that dynamesh area, hold Alt, click Sub, generates geo for me, right? So there we go, I got the geo now. Now at this stage I can decide which side I like more. And so if I like one or the other, I can now use mirror and weld. It's going to give me that side. And then if I want the other side, go deformation, mirror it over, do mirror and weld again. And now I'm going to get the reverse. And then once I get out of the mode there, you can see it's just by itself. I'm going to turn on my original one, take that, go to the deformation tab here, scale that down. The inflate works best too if you have a model that doesn't have a whole lot of edges in it. So dynamic subdivision, using that with inflate is going to give you a lot less pinching. So you end up getting a little better result. And then we can fill that with color as well. Actually, I'm going to fill the outer one. So now I got outer and inner. And see, now I'm starting getting those really crazy advanced details in here. So that's the main process. It's going back, and just back and forth to get things. If I want to add some more stuff to this one as well, I can do that process again. So let's say I'm going to project it from the side. Surface, add that again. Noise, this time I'm going to reset how this offset is. So I'm going to go to alpha, grab a new one, we'll grab that other mech one, use the scale. So maybe I want some sort of wiry lace up there, change the offset so it's not eating too much, maybe something like that. Code OK. It's the second one that's going through, right? And I can double up. So going back to geometry, holding Alt. Right here, holding Alt, click and subtract. It's going to project all the way through. So you can see just kind of the build effect on that. So holding Alt, what Alt is going to do, it's going to look at just the sculptural details from that noise, and it's going to use the noise in the dynamesh calculation. So that's basically all it's doing. It's taking the noise you have applied, and instead of it's going to add it to the dynamesh processing and then generate it. But since the noise is only going to really project from like one side, it's going to give you probably like cut-throughs, as I would say. And so you want to change your noise direction and go that route if you want to make those modifications. But all it's doing is putting noise into the calculation. So it gets really crazy if you have, say, something like a sphere, and then let's put a surface noise on this. So we got here, let's do this one. And I'm just going to dynamesh this quick. And then now, let's put a surface noise on it. Right? And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to go to that surface noise. Go to edit. I'm going to take that mix off, start offsetting. So you can see I'm getting this. It's cutting through. And hit OK. And now if I redo that dynamesh by holding Alt and clicking subtract. So you go through and look at that noise. And now I'm going to get this. And this is all crazy geo here, right? So I probably want to come through and clay polish this quick. Fill that mask and change the color here. Right? So it took the surface noise and applied it all the way through. And it's all over the place. But it's really cool because now you've got this weird effect of, say, I append in, say, a cube here. Move that over. Turn live Boolean on and subtract it. And actually cut through the surface. So if you want to make like quick geodes, bloody stuff inside a character, like it's pretty cool. And then of course you can process it with the dynamesh and it'll give you a result. So there's quick mesh sculpting. So I got about 6 minutes left before they kick me off here. So if you guys got any questions, hit them up. And then that will be the end of our journey here at Comic-Con. So I tried to give you something, guys, to like learn and kind of mess with. I did a lot of demos here this week and got into a flow, so you guys get good stuff. We'll just start coloring these too. Hello. Because my voice is on its last ropes. It's going away. It is going away fast. Alright, so we got some here. Get on it! Get on the ZBrush! Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. I cannot dunk a basketball. Not at all. If the goal is like 6 feet, 7 feet, yeah, we can do that. So we're still working on peel, so as it was asked earlier on in the presentation, so since the stuff we want to release, make sure it works as flawlessly as possible for you guys. It's still in development. So we're doing just internal testing on that and going from there. So when it's done, it'll be done, but we're still messing with it. So it's not quite where we want it to be in order to get it out to you guys. So there we go. Quick mech geo.
Yeah, of course. What's that?
Oh yeah, the children incident. I think I've ruined bringing your kids to Comic-Con for Pixologic. I think if anyone else tries to do this, they're going to get a no. I think I've ruined it. It's like that one thing where you have like a guy in your office and he just takes like all the sick days. Like you have unlimited sick days. You can take as many as you want. But then you have the one guy that's like, really, you took 29 sick days out of the 30 days of the month? And then it's like the company's ruined it, right? Like you just ruined it. Sick days go away. So I feel that my kids may have ruined bringing your kids to Comic-Con for Pixologic. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. They were pretty well. My son was handing out flyers today. He was actually pretty well behaved. But you never know. You never know. So this might be a little bit crazy. I probably should have made some legs too, but that's what you guys get. That's it. That's all you got. So there is no way really to snap and align another subtool. You could do it with an insert mesh. All right, so let's go back to this. bonus hour, one more. Let me save this first though. As I may do something with this. This could be printed out. All right, so thinking. All right, so let's say I have, we'll do this, and we'll do this. So this is it's not gonna exactly what you're looking for in terms of snapping another subtool, but it may give you some ideas. So I'm gonna do a mesh from brush here, and I got this part. And so let's say I have this part, and I want to snap it to this cube. So I got these two parts. I want this to go there. This is not really what you're gonna want, but you're getting the trick anyway. So I'm gonna take this part, the one I have selected here, and I'm gonna turn it into an IMM brush. Just do a new part on that. So now I got this. Now with this, I can draw it out on my cube, and it's gonna draw off the surface normal, right? So this is gonna be a snap, right? So that's gonna be right off that surface normal. So you could take your mesh. Now, of course, yes, this is going to change your scale. I understand that. So I'm saying it's not exactly what you're looking for. But you take the model you have that you want to snap to another surface, you can turn it into an instrument brush, and then after it's created, if you draw it out, it's going to snap to that surface. So that is now snapped to that surface. And then if I want to draw this one, it's going to snap. So it's going to look at the point you clicked on and snap. So that's a snap. That's a snap. But it's not the process you're looking for where you take one subtool and snap it to another subtool. So a little hack. It's not anything you want, but it will do a snap, but it's just not exactly what you're looking for. Well, thank you guys for hanging in there with us. So once I get bandwidth at home, I'll probably start doing this again. My internet is awful. And so that's one of the main reasons why I haven't done any like real Twitch streams. So I try to keep up with all the Ask ZBrush stuff, but eventually if I ever get a decent connection where I'm able to stream to you guys and not have it be like this all the time, we'll go ahead and do that. Yeah, so the snapshot 3D stuff inside of Lightbox, the size of what you're getting is based on the size of the alpha. So the resolution of that. So let's see if I can load this up here. Yeah, this is another great way to build. It's definitely different things. Also, since you can paint, you get some really cool effects on it. So definitely, you don't have to use ZModeler. Like when I started with this, you could have gone with using Snapshot. And Comic-Con's over. So basically, the size of the alpha that you bring it in at, like this one here, if I generated this size, it's going to give me less resolution than if I take it. You can hold shift to get the maximum and make a new one. So now I've got this one and this one. And if I just take these, we'll just merge them together. You can see that I'm getting more resolution here than I am here. And that's just based on the size of the alpha when I turned it into a snapshot. So it's not really going to be, I mean, it's semi-related to the size of your model because it's in a scene, but it's going to be more affected by the size of that alpha there. So you want to make sure the alpha is as big as possible if you want to hold all those details on it. But the whole premise of using the snapshot stuff to make meshes is kind of like shape building. But so if I take this one and I render it this size, I'm going to get this, right? So it's going to do this kind of stuff. But then if I take this and say do it bigger and now do it at that size, now I'm going to get a lot more detail. So you see that? Does that answer that? With the snapshot stuff. So the size of the alpha is going to be the contributing factor. There's also preferences in here inside of, wait for it, Spotlight, maybe. Yeah, so there's these snapshot options here you can change, and you can change the corners on it. So if you have round edges, you're probably going to want it to round a little, so that's why this is set by default at this level. But you can turn those off. You can also mess with these options here, and when you use the snapshot button inside of Spotlight there, it's going to give you a little bit different results. So play with these settings too. They're just in Preferences, Spotlight, and they're going to modify how the mesh is generated from those alphas. All right, guys. Terry, you want to get on camera here and say goodbye? So Terry's been awesome. He's been doing all our streaming stuff here for us. Yeah. He doesn't want to get on camera, but that's Terry. Get Salmon Blair, drinking some water. There he is.
Are we actually live?
Yeah, we're live. I think we're cool. It's still on. It's still on.
The marathon
all right, guys.
continues.
Take care. Thank you all.